Yes, you are watching a review show where West Ham have won, I repeat, won a game of football. Manchester United 0, West Ham 2. We've had to wait since February, Slough, to get a win. It comes a few weeks before the end of the season. Delighted with it. I think we're both surprised that we've come away with Old Trafford. Our first Premier League win there since 2007, completing the double over them in the Premier League for the first time since 2007. So, yeah, it's a fantastic result when you look at it on paper. Going to Old Trafford, keeping a clean sheet. And to be honest, it was probably one of our best performances so far under Graham Potter. So definitely encouraging signs. But again, we're going to go through the analysis and the review show as we normally do, pick out the key highlights, dissect all of the big talking points from the game, and give you guys our thoughts and analysis on what happened on Sunday against Manchester United in West Ham's 2-0 win. So if you do enjoy it, leave a like, subscribe to the channel as well for more content. And yeah, Slough, before we even get into everything, how happy are you to just see West Ham win a game of football?
I am very happy. Obviously we'll get into the caveat of the performance itself, but I think 3 points was vital for us, and I think it was a bit of a much needed revitalizing for the fan base, because it was painful, and I think previous performances just completely lacked any sort of attacking threat or ambition, and this was somewhat of a nice change. And it's always nice to beat Man United, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Here's a little bit of a snapshot of the stats from the game. So United on the left, West Ham on the right. Possession was pretty even, almost 50-50. United's XG was higher than ours at 2.23 compared to our 1.76, which we will dissect shortly. They had double the amount of shots than us, or over double the amount, with 20 compared to our 9. 5 shots on target for United, 4 for us. 4 big chances each. 4 missed for United, 2 missed for West Ham, and passes were pretty similar as well. And then on the right-hand side, you can kind of see the momentum graph from the first half and also the second half as well. In terms of the lineups, we didn't expect there to be too many crazy changes. I think when the lineups were announced, which I just want to touch on as well, Stuff, a lot of the fan base online, especially on Twitter, had a negative reaction to this lineup. I think with Kudus starting, with Rodriguez starting, with the midfield three of Souček, Ward-Prowse, Rodriguez, I think people were a little bit frustrated that the likes of Paqueta weren't in here, that we were playing Wan-Bissaka left wing back and not right wing back, and Emerson had been dropped. And also Guido Rodriguez making his first start in the Premier League for God knows how long. So when the lineups dropped, were you optimistic? Were you pessimistic? Were you in most of the camp of West Ham fans? Were you like, what on earth is Potter cooking up?
I think most of us were surprised by that, and I'd be sat here lying if I thought, oh yeah, that's the team that's going to go out and beat Man U. But then again, I'd be sat here lying if I said that about any West Ham side, any sort of possible lineup we could have put out. Even this Man United side, it's the football this season has been so bad that I don't think anyone could line up a West Ham side and say, I feel confident that'll beat Man United. So I kind of wasn't that fussed about the changes. It was disappointing because I do think that at this point in the season, people like Guido Rodriguez, who had a good game. I'm not saying that these people didn't have good games. People like Guido, people even to a degree out of form players, or players who like James Ward-Prowse, players who probably shouldn't be starting off their form. We could be giving youngsters a go and see what they're doing. And I think most West Ham fans kind of feel that frustration that's where they want us to, or what they want us to start doing. They want us to try and test out these youngsters. But obviously he gets the result. And I think it's not one that we saw coming, but I think a lot of that reaction online was probably because of the things that we wanted from the lineup, because we wanted certain inclusions and youngsters to be utilized, that it kind of feels like this is the time to do exactly that.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think Graham Potter, it's difficult for him now to get the balance right between now and the end of the season because there isn't really that much for West Ham to play for. And players like Guido Rodriguez, as we're going to kind of touch on, actually played pretty well in this game. But he's already openly said that he's wanting to leave. He said it in January. So he's not someone I would say is extremely unlikely he's going to be around next season. But when we look at how West Ham actually set up, it was interesting how we used Souček, because obviously Fulkrug is one that people were frustrated with as well, that he wasn't starting. And we went back to that Kudus and Bowen situation of those two being the main outlets. It was really interesting how Graham Potter utilised Thomas Souček for a lot of this game. And it was actually almost a striker position. He took up that number 9 position quite a lot in the match. And he was almost the forward-thinking midfielder of the three, with Guido and Ward-Prowse sitting in behind. And a lot of the times it allowed him to get into dangerous areas in the box where we know Souček can flourish. So, and we're going to touch on the first goal shortly, but it was interesting to see that Graham Potter went for this sort of setup against a Manchester United team that were on Sunday extremely passive in the way they played. And again, dropping someone like Fulkrug, who actually played okay in the last game against Spurs and had some decent moments and was starting to pick up fitness and recovery. And he dropped him for a midfielder of Souček's ability to go and play in that false 9 position when we were getting forwards, and then out of possession, it just gave us that extra security to block off the midfield free. And then Bowen and Kudus were going back as the strikers. So yeah, it was an interesting lineup from how West Ham would kind of moving across. And the first half in particular, I think Manchester United was so passive, especially even up to the point where we took the lead with the second goal. They were just so passive. They were just allowing us to play out from the back. They weren't really pressing us at all, which made it really easy. And when we talk about the first goal, which we're going to get into now, I think there were a total of 39 or 40 passes in the sequence. We almost had the ball for 2 minutes. So when we were going back and reviewing this tape for the analysis, there was just no pressure from the United. It was really poor from their perspective. So we just want to take you through that goal now and illustrate the things that West Ham did well, but also look at the poor defending from Manchester United. And, I can feel their frustration by going back and reviewing this goal, because it's really frustrating defensively for them. But it starts like this. We knew this was going to be the setup, with a back three of Cresswell, Kilman, Todibo, the midfield pivot of Guido and Ward-Prowse trying to collect the ball. We shift the ball across. It goes out to Todibo. He then plays it into Sofal. And you can see there you've got Ward-Prowse, you've got Guido, and then you've got Souček dropping in that midfield three. United are pretty stretched at this point. So they've tried to go high onto Kilman with Højlund, and also Mason Mount's pushed out to Todibo. It's just left so much space in the middle of the park, because what United didn't do is push up as a unit, and their defense almost sat very deep in their back in their half. So what it allowed us to do is just create so much space. Like, look how easy this was for Kufal to find Ward-Prowse. And Ward-Prowse drives with the ball. We get the ball into this situation, and okay, United have reset to an extent, and they're getting bodies behind the ball, so that's fine. But Kudus drops in between this gap here, where Kobe Mainoo is trying to pick up, and also the United midfielder that's lost my mind now, the small one in midfield. I can't remember his name, but So they're basically now fixated on Kudus, and Cresswell we can see is pushed up and is almost playing in that midfield from the left centre back position as well. What Cresswell does really, really well is he plays it out to Wan-Bissaka. He doesn't admire his pass. He makes a very, very simple run in behind. Diallo doesn't really track it. Mainoo then comes across. Cresswell does a really nice back heel back into Wan-Bissaka's path. And then this is where it just all goes wrong for Manchester United. So West Ham have got to this position through some really nice football, really patient football, but some really poor pressing and lack of structure from Manchester United. We then take it forward to frame. And this is where you can see the mistakes that start to happen in the Manchester United backline. So you could just see there between Wan-Bissaka and Kudus, where the arrows are, that's Mazraoui. He's the right centre-back in United's back three. I don't really know what he's doing here, trying to push out in this situation. It's not his responsibility to do that. You can see Ugarte in the middle of your frame there. He should be the one shifting into this position. Diallo should be tucking in as well. Kudus makes a really simple run in behind. The back line of Manchester United is not good enough because of what Mazraoui is doing, and it just vacates that space. Kudus makes the nice run. He's picked out by Wan-Bissaka. And then again, really, really good play from Kudus here, because he could have easily crossed this first time and it gets blocked, but he disguises the cross and he plays one more touch down the line, and Diallo's already committed to try and block it. So he leaves him on his backside, and then we find ourselves in this position where Kudus has found that space, And we spoke about at the beginning, Souček being utilised as the more advanced of the midfield three and being allowed to roam into that box because we didn't have that striker presence of Fulkrug and Bowen and Kudus were playing either side of that. It allows Souček to almost just drift into the box and the centre-backs don't pick him up. He gets across his man and Kudus just drills it across the box. Really nice play. And Souček with a fantastic finish, to be honest. He reacts really, really well and almost kind of Cruyff turns it into the net. And West Ham find themselves 1-0 up in 25 minutes at Manchester United. Good, bad? What do you think? Is it poor defending or is it patient, good play from West Ham? Or a little bit of both there, Sloth?
It's a little bit of both. And I've just got to say beforehand that I think this is something that we've said about for many, many seasons on Babbling, is that this is where Souček is so valuable. And I cannot believe the amount of stories linking with the move away. Because when you have a player who can offer you this outlet as a number 9, who can then drop back and offer you cover across the centre-back line, the defensive line, and give you so much in so many areas of the game, goals, work rate, aerial presence, it's incredibly valuable. I just cannot get my head around the idea that Graham Potter has watched him and thought he's the problem at West Ham or he needs to go. So I think he put in a really good performance. And I also think that this is probably one of Kudus's better games this season. I think 100%. I think there were parts of this game where he tried to take up the Paqueta mantle of aimless passing to no one. Or even giving it away to Man United players at times. But that said, this is what we know Graham Potter wants to try and get West Ham to do and how he wants them to play in the future. And part of that, as bad as Man United were, and as little work as they clearly put in, you still have to score a goal at the end of the day. So I don't want it to take too much away from the individual moments in this game. And I think Kudus did very well here. As you mentioned, he could have easily panicked and hit it first time. And we've been very critical of his decision-making in this season when sometimes he will shoot from a silly position or he will decide to run down a complete dark alleyway kind of thing instead of just taking his time and making the right decision. This is a great bit of play from him, and the delivery at the end of it's not one that it's one of those balls where he makes Souček. It's not an easy finish. It's a good bit of skill from Souček, but
he's hit it into an area to be attacked, hasn't he? He's saying, if you're there to be, if my number 9 or Souček in this situation, who we know has an instinct for goal, if he's in that position, it's going to be a goal. So I'm just going to fire it into that area and hope my teammates get across there.
Yeah, any bit of contact, whether it's from Souček, whether it's from someone running in, it's one of those balls where you put any bit of your foot on it, it's going in the right direction.
Yeah,
it's a really good bit of play from us, and as you mentioned, the build up to it is, I think it was 38 passes in the end, and that again is very Potter-esque with how he wants us to play. Shout out to Cresswell for the excellent flick as well. that was really, really good.
I thought he was another one that had a fantastic game as well.
Yeah, well, I think against Spurs as well, he was very much one of the better players. And it's kind of weird when you look at the timing of the announcement that we're letting him go. I think that was a bit odd. But regardless of that, take nothing away from the goal. It's a great finish from Souček. And it's, as we mentioned, he's put himself in a difficult position because while we said any sort of contact, it goes towards the goal, he's leading the line. So he's pressing those Man United defenders back towards their goal line, and he's creating space for other people to run in and cause problems. It just so happens that he's got the chance himself to tuck it away. And you saw his kind of tireless running and pressing of that back line paying off here. And I think the combination of the pace on the ball from Kudus across the goal and just the ability to flick that behind is what really stood out for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think what we saw in this match, to be honest, from West Ham was a little bit more intensity in our play, both out of possession and in possession in moments where we needed to inject a little bit of pace. Obviously, under Graham Potter, we're going to be very patient, very calm with the ball in the build-up, or at least try to be. And then when you're out of possession, I thought, especially in the second half, we were working really, really hard to hold on to what we had, especially when we took the second goal advantage that we did. But yeah, the first half, United didn't really threat too much. They had a couple of shots from quite long distance. They had one ball over the top that Højlund couldn't control. But other than that, we were pretty comfortable. As I said, they weren't really pressing us. We were allowed to play football. We were dominating the ball for large portions of the first half. I think the first 5-10 minutes, we were a little bit shaky, but we grew into it really, really quickly. Guido Rodriguez was especially one of those. In the first few minutes, completely warranted because he hasn't played any Premier League football for so long. Took him a few minutes to get up to speed with his passing and, scanning of the situations, but he was excellent, to be honest. He was absolutely excellent from that moment forwards. And the second half, what I liked is we didn't just sharp shop. We went out with the intent to get a second goal. And it's something we haven't seen, not just from a mentality perspective that Fulcrook's alluded to, that a lot of players have alluded to, that the fans have alluded to, but it was in the players themselves. You could see it visibly that they wanted to go and get a second goal away at Old Trafford, irrespective of how poor Manchester United are and the intensity they would have put into that Europa League match a few days before. There was still a job to be done, and you can see here, from the very first moment in the second half. This is very early on. I think 30 seconds into the second half. We are pressing Man United high. Ward-Prowse has gone high. Bowen's tracking. You've got Kufau there pushing their left wing back. You've got Todibo in the bottom left there pushing up. So we're not just resting on our laurels here. We're trying to get a second goal. And we forced Man United into a mistake. Again, a really good tackle from Bowen here to win the ball back. We get the ball out to Kufau, puts in a nice ball. It then deflects and goes out to Kudus on the left-hand side. Kudus finds himself in a very similar situation to what we saw with the goal. And he actually had two options here. So he could have tried to get this across to Souček, and almost a carbon copy of the first goal, and drill that across. But I think the angle was blocked. But what Kudus does is he disguises the pass really well. And all the United players are almost drawn to the ball. And then you see Ward-Prowse there making a run from deep. And it's unfortunate that he doesn't get a better connection with it. I'm going to be a little bit more lenient with it because it was on his left foot. It's not an easy finish to do that first time from the way the direction of the ball is coming towards him. But it was a fantastic layoff from Kudus. I think that's what's been missing. And yeah, Ward-Prowse kind of trickles his shot into the keeper. But that sort of quality in the final third slot from Kudus is what we haven't been seeing this season. In this game, it was a different story, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think he does deserve a lot of credit, and there was something that kind of, I think, has summed up his season with us that we'll come to later on. But I think he showed all the sort of energy and fight that we saw from him in the first season. Though that quality is still lacking, and I think particularly in the second goal, there's little things that he does that really kind of show. They show where his decision making needs to improve, and where if he's going to try and hit a shot, he needs to actually hit it with some quality instead of just what I think he tends to do is just try and hit it with power. And here he's fantastic. When he gets running with the ball, he is absolutely unstoppable. The only player who I think comes close to him in the Premier League is Doku at City. Just it's kind of different ways. Kudus has that physicality and pace, whereas just Doku is the skill and pace, the ability to just knock it past someone and you're not getting anywhere near him. And I think where Doku earlier in the season, he struggled to really sort of to get that final product down, whether it was goals or whether it was assists. He struggled with that. I think that's what Kudus is going through at the moment, or has done this whole season. Yeah. And I think he deserves a bit of special recognition for just how well he worked, and we're going to go on to the criticisms of him in a bit, but I think that work rate cancels that out. When you have someone who is willing to run as much as he was, particularly like he did against Arsenal, I think it's his best performance since Arsenal away.
Yeah, I agree.
It makes you so difficult to play against.
Yeah, no, as that's a great point. You know, out of possession as well. He was working really hard and pressing Man United and making sure he was back into his shape. And yeah, I mean, the whole team was working really hard up until this point. And I think the second goal kind of exemplified that to an extent. And it comes from United being really poor. I mean, we turn over possession. We're now tracking back or trying to reset after losing the ball, which is why you can see Wan-Bissaka there in your frame towards the right of Ugarte is tracking back. But again, the complacency of Manchester United is so poor. But look at the work rate from Wan-Bissaka to get, but not only just get back in, but it's something we've mentioned about Wan-Bissaka before. I thought he was excellent as well against Manchester United. But he was working so hard, especially in the second half, when he was getting tired and he was having to 1v1 against Garnacho. But this moment here kind of encapsulated that, where he's sprinting back after the ball and forcing a mistake out of Manchester United. You know, we're not just resetting, we're not just going back. He is there to win the ball. The ball is there to be won. United are being pretty complacent. We nick the ball back and then we're away. And again, look at the top of your screen there. I mean, Wan-Bissaka's on his bike. He's trying to get forwards. He's just sprinted back to make the tackle. And then he's thinking about getting forwards for his team as well. And again, as you mentioned with Kudus, really good play from him here. He just takes on Maguire like he's not even there. Ugarte's on the ground. I don't know what he's trying to complain at. It's never a foul. And then we see elements of West Ham of old in transitions and how effective we can be with the likes of Kudus, the likes of Bowen in our transitional threats when we're playing in these open spaces. And yeah, Kudus takes it around Maguire really nicely, finds himself in this situation where I think he could have passed to Bowen, but it kind of got shut off. And I think Kudus actually warranted cutting in on his left foot here to try and get a shot away. It then gets deflected and blocked from going through, and it goes out to Wan-Bissaka on the left-hand side. Oh, that's just completely butchered my thing. But there we go. And Wan-Bissaka drills it back into Bowen, and Bowen is there to tap home a really simple finish. And yeah, West Ham find themselves 2-0 up away at Manchester United, and really cementing ourselves with a significant lead here against a Manchester United team that had been really poor up to this point and not really created anything. But the work rate we're seeing there, and you know, the willingness of the likes of Wan-Bissaka, Kudus, Bowen to get forwards in those moments, really good from West Ham. And again, really poor defensively from Manchester United.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is exactly the kind of goal that we would concede normally, or over the course of this season. This is the kind of goal that we'd have conceded and lost the game from. And I think that when you're comparing the two teams, like as a Manchester United fan who's kind of sitting there, you must be thinking, these players don't care. Like, that's the sort of goal that it screamed to me is where we've complained earlier in the season about the lack of work ethic and what looks like passion. And that's something that I'll kind of pick out on in a second. But there's a total lack of effort from the Manchester United players to get back and deal with the situation. And I think Wan-Bissaka showed everything that is right with a footballer's mentality today. You know, he went back to his old club. He wanted to make a point, and he worked his absolute nuts off. And I think he was my man of the match. But as you say, he got stuck in. There's no foul there, and I know we're seeing a lot more fouls given for very little contact. This is a great example of just being switched on, playing to the whistle, because it looked like Man United just kind of thought, oh, we'll get this foul, and you know, well, we'll go up from there, and we'll hopefully box West Ham back into their own half. No, really good bit of play from Wan-Bissaka. He wins the ball cleanly, and Kudus breaks forward. As I said, this is kind of where we see the duality of Kudus. So good running with the ball, and for me, it's a really poor decision to take a shot. It's something that he's done a few times, and at no point has it paid off for him.
I actually didn't mind it, to be honest, Slough, because he could pass it to Bowen, but there was a space that slightly opened up for him to shoot. But yeah, I agree that we've seen it too many times where he's delayed it and then the shot gets blocked.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all, because he plays a big part in creating the opportunity. And also, I've got to add that if he does play it out to Bowen, Bowen still has to cut inside and hit it with his left. So there are those two things. But what I can't forgive from Kudus is when we do score, because it's a great ball back from Wan-Bissaka across to Bowen. When we do score, there is no reaction from Kudus. And the Man United keeper gives you more of a reaction than Kudus. Now, I don't care. People can say he's frustrated at not scoring himself. That's fine. But you've just scored a second away at Old Trafford. You should show a bit of emotion and a bit of joy, especially from your own hard work and involvement in the goal. So for me, that was...
Do you think that's an internal frustration with how his season has gone? Or do you think it's wider than that where, you know, the interest in playing for West Ham has now gone and he's looking towards the summer and almost playing for himself at this point?
I think if he was that interested in playing for himself, he doesn't hit it across the goal for the first one. He would be taking a shot himself. But I do think it's a real shame that, you know, you can't at least get involved and credit your teammates where it's due. You know, even if you don't score the goal, you should be happy it happens.
Yeah.
And people might disagree and go, oh, you know, he's just frustrated with himself because he's not scored. End of the day, it's not an excuse. You're still looking to go 2 up. You're still looking to get yourselves in a safer position. And I'm really disappointed with that. I think it sums up a lot of the problems we have at West Ham, where there are players who are playing for themselves. And look, Kudus is a fantastic player if he gets his attitude right and his work right, because the player we've seen this season and the player we saw last season are a complete contrast. If he was playing like he did last season, there's no way we're even talking about him staying.
Yeah.
If we're being brutally honest, you know, we'd be looking at the likes of Liverpool, Real Madrid, potentially, you know, the big sides coming in and taking him.
Yeah.
When you put in so little consistently quality performances, consistent quality, then you can't have complaints if you're at West Ham. And
yeah,
I think I just want to see a bit more. If he's here next season, if he is sold, you know, I think at the end of the day, West Ham fans should wish him all the best going forward, because he's kind of a conduit for criticism because of where he's dropped off from.
Yeah.
However, what you can't really fault is his work rate. And I think it's a similar situation that we found ourselves in with Antonio a couple of seasons ago, when he was often working really hard, but his finishing was lacking, or say he had run himself into the ground and he wasn't able to, or he wasn't chasing after everything because he tired himself out. And I think when you get to that point as a footballer with the fans, you either need you either just wait for the season to end and you want that pre-season time to get back in and find your focus, or you go somewhere new.
Yeah. I agree. I think that reaction of, you know, just standing still and not celebrating with the team is never a good look. But yeah, it's frustrating with Kudus because, as you say, we're judging him off the quality we know he has. So the fact we haven't seen it enough this season is what's frustrated the fans, and I think rightly so. But yeah, after that moment, it seemed like we were 2-0 up, in control. And then there was a little bit of a momentum shift in the game. And I think psychologically, look, you're 2-0 away at Old Trafford. You're naturally going to start to play a little bit more conservative. So I have no issue with that. But we lost control in key areas, and particularly in the midfield. And I think it actually came when, I think as soon as we scored a couple of minutes later, Manchester United made a couple of subs. Garnacho came on, Dorgu came on. And West Ham made a sub in the 60th minute. And it was actually Guido Rodriguez going off, and Edson Alvarez came on. And I thought Guido Rodriguez was allowing us to have that control in midfield because he was just such a calming, reassuring presence in there.
Yeah.
And he was keeping things ticking along. He was very sensible on the ball. And it just gave West Ham players confidence on the ball that I think we haven't seen much this season. Edson Alvarez came on, and I feel like we lost a little bit of that. I think he was going out of his position a little bit too much. Guido Rodriguez was naturally just sitting in that position more comfortably. United were clearly chasing the game, so they were pushing more bodies forward, and they were trying to flick the switch on the game. And we just started to lose control, and that's where the Manchester United chances happened. It really came from the 60th minute to the 90th minute onwards. That's where the bulk of Manchester United's action happened. And the first one is a simple free kick. Again, we're not really switched on to this situation. I get that we're trying to be compact and be defensively sound here, but this is a very easy pass for Manchester United to make, and we're not close enough to Diallo to stop this cross. I mean, you can see here, but if you just look at the back post there, you can't actually see, but to the left of Kufal, who I've circled, is Garnacho, and he's on the shoulder of Kufal. And Kufal just switches off for a second. Again, it's something we've alluded to with Kufal over the last couple of seasons as he's got older. It's just that complacency that starts to creep in the latter stages of games. And what we see is very difficult to make it out, but you can see Kufal there standing still, and Garnacho's just gone around the back of him, and he should score. He should score from here, really, or at least hit the target, and he actually hits the side netting from this. So that was I would say, the alarm bell for West Ham. I mean, if we bring it back, that's the 61st minute of the game. That's where the alarm bell should have been ringing for West Ham. And again, this one is the next chance that Manchester United generate. It comes from a little bit of misfortune, but again, some really poor play from someone that was actually substituted. And West Ham fans have been advocating for playing in Nicholas Füllkrug. And when you think about Füllkrug, it's all about holding up the ball and keeping defenders off of him. What I've done here is Cresswell has actually won the ball and intercepted it. So Man United tried to clear it. Cresswell stepped inside of Diallo and won this ball, and it's gone into Füllkrug. So that's why Cresswell's so high up. And you can see Diallo just off the back of him there, but it's not actually Cresswell being out of position. Just want to caveat that. He's come in and stepped and won the ball in front of Diallo, and we've now got this freeze frame. Füllkrug should be holding on to this ball as a centre forward because he's got Souček to bounce off. He's got Alvarez to bounce off. He's got Ward-Prowse just in front of him. He's got Wan-Bissaka to the left. Like, there are bodies around Füllkrug. He should be holding on to this, but he's tackled way, way too easily. Way too easily. He tries to turn his man in a situation where he shouldn't be. And then Bruno just plays a really, really nice first-time pass, recognises the space of Diallo because Cresswell stepped up. And then all of a sudden, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 West Ham bodies there in Manchester United's half. We leave ourselves a little bit exposed because Tadebo's pushed up quite high as well. Kufal is very high up. And what I mentioned about Alvarez, pressing up high and not just sitting in that position, you can see the space that he's vacated as well. And it leads to this, and it leads to a very rare Manchester United counter-attack against West Ham. And then you're left with Kilman and Tadebo effectively in a 3-on-2 because of what Füllkrug did and the poor hold-up play that he possessed in that situation. And to be honest, Diallo does everything right. I think the pass is a little bit too hard out to Højlund. But again, Højlund finds himself in this situation where he should be doing better, but it's a good save from Areola. And he keeps it at 2-0 with 15 minutes left. But just to touch on Füllkrug there, Sloth, if that was another player that wasn't Füllkrug, I feel like they would be getting a lot more grief than what actually happens here. Do you sympathise that he's come into the match, hasn't really played many minutes in this match against United, and is still getting up to speed, or is that something he needs that can't really happen as the type of striker that he is? He should be holding onto that ball better.
I think that's the change from the Bundesliga to the Premier League. You get that time in the Bundesliga, and it's no disrespect to the league. It's just a different sort of tenacity that you have there. And especially if you're playing, if you're Dortmund and you're playing Holstein Kiel or something like that, they're going to be on the back foot. They're not going to be as aggressive. And I think that he does need to do better there. There's no excusing it. What I am going to say is that all those sort of criticisms we've just given to Kudus, you can completely label Edson Alvarez. You can criticize him night and day from the player that was here last season. His attitude is appalling at the moment. It's appalling. And basic football, basic positioning in football, you would switch on and you think, oh, okay, I'll do this. And things like the Forest game earlier in the season when he got sent off, completely brainless. But I've not heard that many fans criticising him that much, or to the same degree as a number of players.
No, I agree. He's had what he got a red card against Liverpool away. He got a
Yes.
red card against Forest and doing something very stupid. There's been internal stuff which we're not going to go into on this channel, but we know what's happened over the last few weeks within the club with Edson Alvarez. It is not good enough, and I'm really surprised that Graham Potter brought him on. I think because Guido was, he's not had the minutes. He can only really play at 60. But I am surprised he brought on Edson Alvarez for him. I really am, because of the situation that we find ourselves in with him and everything that's happening. But yeah, as you say, I think he deserves the criticism because of what's happened behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, I think with just to kind of caveat it, with Kudus, you can see what he's trying to do. You can see that there is a work rate and a willingness there to do well. With Edson Alvarez, I'm not seeing any of that. I just see a brain dead footballer who is lunging into tackles and not working hard. And I think what's been quite disappointing for me from a Graham Potter perspective and watching him is the substitutions that he makes.
Yeah, agreed.
Or particularly in recent weeks have harmed us. If anything,
I think Carlos Soler is also one that is fitting into that category where he came on against United. He was awful, like really bad. Like that chance there actually came from Soler not being able to control a football. It was a simple control. United win it, ping it up, Cresswell down intercepts it, and then that unfolds that we just went through. But yeah, I agree. I think Graham Potter's substitutions have been strange, and also timings of the substitutions have been strange.
I do think that we have to caveat that with a little bit of
we won the football game
and a little bit of fairness that
yeah,
he hasn't had the time to recruit that he would have
of course
wanted, and all those kind of things. The squad is terrible. We've gone from the point to think we had a really good squad, and we have now truly seen a lot of the attitudes of the players for what they really are. And I think with the injuries and those attitudes and the toxicity that they've created, I don't really blame Potter that much for this situation. However, I think Areola does well. He probably shouldn't be given the chance to save that by Højlund. I think it's very poor striker play. But I just think that there's so much that I'll be interested to look back in the next time we play Manchester United and see who is still here from this West Ham team.
Exactly. And yeah, I think there was 4 big chances United had really in the second half. The next one comes from a set piece where, again, Maguire had one very close before this where it went wide. And again, Maguire came on, and it's just a different kind of threat that Manchester United were trying to create. So it's not really anything too poor from us, but I think the only criticism I would have is maybe putting Wan-Bissaka or Maguire wasn't the best idea. It's a little bit of a mismatch aerially. We probably should have either Kilman or Todibo on there. But again, Kilman and Todibo are not the best in aerial duels as well. So maybe you want to put Souček in there. But I know that zonal marking and things like that in the modern day is a big thing. But Maguire kind of recognised it. It's a very good ball in from Bruno, and it just goes right onto the head of Maguire. But again, it's straight at Areola. So that's chance free. And then the fourth chance for Manchester United, again, another set piece. And this was actually fantastic from Areola. But again, should be finishing it. Højlund should be finishing this chance. But it's an excellent ball in from Bruno. A little bit of a scramble here. The ball then comes back across the face of goal. And then what Areola pulls off there, I mean, it's hard to see from this frame, but it's absolutely fantastic, outstanding save to get across his line and stop this from going in. But Højlund should score from there. And that's when we looked at the XG at the beginning, this chance is probably contributing to almost 1 XG because of how close to goal he was and how much time he had to score this. But look, it's a fantastic save from Areola to get across, and he actually makes a double save as well. But Højlund has to be scoring that, doesn't he, Slough?
Yeah, I will just caveat that with it's not a bad. He's not struck that poorly. He's not mishit it. It's got the pace that you'd want on it. Areola just does really well to make himself big. It's not one of those ones where you go, oh, anywhere else it goes in. Areola's done well, and I think he deserves, obviously we're saying it's a great save. Højlund, for me, the previous chance is a better chance because he's got more time to think and more
it's a
time.
1v1, isn't it?
Yeah. This is, he's got made a decent connection, and it's just it's gone in the wrong spot. It's gone in the one place where Areola can get a strong hand to it. But I think it's one of those where if I'm a Manchester United fan, I'm probably going, he has to score that. Like, but it's a difficult chance, and I think I don't know about you if the commentators were pretty brutal on my stream about it. But they were talking like it was a simple tap in, and it
wasn't a simple tap in. I do think he should score it, but I think the save from Areola was underrated because of how fast they reacted, and because he's diving back across goal where Højlund is. It makes it he's diving before the ball's even struck. So he's gambled on it, and he's made a very good save. And I think Areola deserves credit for his performance as well yesterday. He's someone that's come under quite a bit of scrutiny, but I thought he had a very good game against Manchester United and kept us in the game in key moments, like we mentioned there, with poor finishing, but also very good saves at the same time. And we almost wrapped it off perfectly, Slough, at the end with Ward-Prowse, almost got a third goal. But again, it just illustrates the desire and the hunger of the team. Look, Ward-Prowse isn't someone I think should be starting for West Ham next season. But what he will do is give you work rate. And I think everyone in the West Ham team, as I said yesterday, or majority of the players in the West Ham team yesterday were working exceptionally hard. This is the 94th minute of the game. Ward-Prowse is going out and pressing Eriksen to pass the ball backwards and shutting off this angle. It's a really poor pass from Lindelof, but Ward-Prowse is there, still going forwards, intercepts it really well, reads it fantastically. And this is a decent save as well. He tries. There isn't really much Ward-Prowse can do with this than go across the goal, unless you want to do a Dimitri Payet and fake to chip it and then chip it over the goalie. But I don't think Ward-Prowse has that in his locker as a finisher. But he tries to strike it low and hard across the goal. And the Manchester United keeper makes a decent save with his feet. But it would have been nice to wrap it off with a 3-0 win. But look, I'm going to take a 2-0 win all day long away at Old Trafford, notoriously a ground that we really struggle with. It was nice to get 3 points, and not only get 3 points off, but move ourselves a couple places up the league. Obviously, Spurs lost to Palace, so we're now above Spurs and United in the Premier League with just a couple more games left to go. So, positives to take out of it. I think many positive performances to take away. Wan-Bissaka was outstanding. I thought the back three with Cresswell coming into that back three has just given us a little bit more assurance and calmness and, to be honest, guidance. I think he's ushered that defense really well. And the back three of Kilman, Todibo and Cresswell works a lot better than, say, Mavropanos, Kilman, Todibo. I just don't think that blends well enough. And Cresswell on the ball just gives us a level of assurance that we don't normally have. I thought Kufal did well considering the minutes he's played. Areola, we've already touched on. Souček being Souček as well. And again, Guido Rodriguez, special shout out to him. Like, as much as I don't think he's going to be a West Ham player, and there's things he's done that I don't agree with, he was very good. He was very, very good, especially given the circumstances of not playing much football. And we've already touched on Kudus. I thought Bowen had a decent game. He wasn't massively in it, but he was working hard, and I could tell he wasn't happy with being subbed off by Graham Potter. But you have to take those sometimes. And I think the substitutes, there weren't really any that stood out massively, to be honest, when they did come on. But I thought that the team deserved the win. I think, given looking at the XG, you could say maybe we got fortunate, and there were a couple of moments there where we did. But the balance of the game, I think we deserved to win it. To be honest, I think we maybe lacked creating too many chances in the second half because of the nature from 60 minutes onwards. But by and large, we were fantastic, and the effort and the application was much better from West Ham. And it'll be interesting to see now how we finish the season with these last couple of games with Forest and Ipswich coming up. But if you had to pick a man of the match to finish this up, Sloth, who would you be picking?
Wan-Bissaka for me. I think he was fantastic all game. And I think by some distance, he's our best signing in recent years for me.
Especially for value.
Yeah, I think probably the best signing we've made since Souček and Bowen, to be honest. So, I thought he was fantastic, and I want to give a special mention actually as well to. I just mentioned about the sort of atmosphere we have at West Ham at the moment, and Kilman impressed me when Souček was encouraging Fabianski, Coufal, and Cresswell to go over to the West Ham United fans at the end, and obviously we were releasing them at the end of the season, and you know, he wanted them to get a bit of applause. Kilman was doing the same thing, encouraging them over, and that's what you want to see, even from a new guy at the club. You know, you want to see them getting involved and encouraging that sort of recognition, and I like that from a player, because I think they do deserve recognition, whether or not you like them individually or whatever. They deserve recognition for what they've done for West Ham, and I like that from a player who I think could well be a big part of our defence next season.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You know, you look at Cresswell, 2014, he's been here since then. Fabianski, I think, joined in 2018. Kufau as well has been here since 2020. These players have been here a long time, and not only been here a long time, but instrumental to the change at this football club. And you can see, from Cresswell's performances, like when he's playing in that back three in those sorts of games, he's still got the quality to play at this level. Maybe not every week, like week in, week out. And I think he would have been good to keep around the club for another year, but that's a completely separate video. And as you say, like Fabianski has been fantastic for West Ham. Kufau as well, probably one of the best right backs we've seen in the Premier League for West Ham, and massively contributing to the success we saw in Europe and in the Premier League as well. So yeah, I think Wan-Bissaka on the day was excellent. Definitely man of the match. I agree with you there, Sloth. But there were definitely some notable mentions from the likes of Guido Rodriguez, Kudus as well, massively stepped up, and a few others as well, like Cresswell that we've mentioned. But yeah, that's going to be all for the review show. Let us know in the comments, what did you think of the 2-0 win away at Manchester United? More encouraged as a West Ham fan now going into the last couple of weeks and into the summer transfer window, or are you still a little bit pessimistic for what could happen? Let us know down below in the comments. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel for more content. And Sloth, until the next one.
Cohen, you eyes.